What's Underneath is a CastBox original produced in partnership with Studio 71.
CastBox is the fastest growing, highest rated podcast app on both iOS and Android, where you can find all of your favorite podcasts.
You can listen to What's Underneath wherever you get your podcasts, but we hope you'll give CastBox a shot and see for yourself.
Hello and welcome to What's Underneath,
the podcast that will inspire radical self-acceptance through empowering you to embrace what's unrepeatable in you.
I'm Lily Mandelbaum, and sitting next to me is my mom, Elisa Goodkind.
And we are StyleLikeU. In our new podcast, we are going to expand the types of intimate, unfiltered conversations we've been having in our viral video series, The What's Underneath Project.
Each week, we will interview diverse nonconformists about their relationship to style, self-image, and identity.
Being radically honest without shame and holding that honesty with compassion is self-acceptance.
So, Mom, who are we here with today?
So we are here today with Chloe Garcia Ponce, the most amazing healer and human. We Skyped yesterday for the first time, and I knew immediately that Chloe had to come today, and to come and do this because she's just absolutely perfect for our community and for our message in terms of what an incredibly down to earth and deep and humble and creative person she is. So we're very, very, very happy to have her here. Can you begin by talking a little bit about what you are the most excited about right now in life?
To see this new generation, really want to have their identity and their voice be heard in this political spectrum that is daunting. A lot of people are very fearful with what is going on, not just with the planet, but also with the political spectrum of this country and how that unfolds in other countries. And to see the youth and to see people standing up for their rights and wanting to change the outcome and to really shake up the system, that's what I'm the most excited about.
Do you believe that what is happening right now is going to lead to a real change?
I hope so. I have faith that it will. Because I have faith that, the power and the will of goodness and righteousness and standing up for the right things, that even through history, when we have seen darkness, like light has prevailed.
Does that come from personal experience for you?
Yes. I think in order to understand or to speak about light, you have to experience darkness. And, the amount of light that I see or that I'm capable of working with is also because I have witnessed a lot of darkness and sadness and grief and pain. And all of that is part of this beautiful wheel of life, we cannot have one without the other. But what we can have is we can choose how we want to live our life and what we want to move in what direction, My grandmother on my mother's side, who was Cherokee, when I would come to visit her, she would always bring me back to a lineage that was very sacred to her. She was my teacher in many ways. She grew up in a very poor part of the United States. And being Native American, they were not affluent at all. And my grandfather, who immigrated from the Ukraine, he was Jewish. He built a beautiful future for my grandmother. And he gave her everything. It was beautiful growing up with them because they were my biggest teachers. They had nothing and they built everything as immigrants. And so for me, I grew up in a very privileged situation, but I also was exposed to a lot of grief and pain. I lost my father when I was very young, and I lost my sister as well. And, when you experience death at a very young age, it can be very traumatic. But I had my grandparents, I had my mother, I had really a loving family that we were able to rise above the sadness. We didn't try not to talk about it. We were very, in my culture in Mexico, death and life is the same. And so we always had...
Can you elaborate on that? Death and life is the same?
Well, we have a platform in my country, in Mexico, where we're able to honor the spirit world. And we have a time of year where it's called Dia de los Muertos, where we honor our ancestors that have passed. And I think living with the reality that even though the physical of the people that you love has gone, you're still able, there's a way of communicating with them, through altar work or through just remembering them and feeding their memory. And I think as a young child, knowing that, the person that I love the most, my father, had left me in a physical form, but I was still able to communicate with him on a spiritual level. And to honor his memory was very comforting.
Why did you love him the most?
I had a very special bond with him. The way that I'm able to love in this lifetime, the way that I'm able to just be unconditional with that word, is because of what he gave to me before he passed.
What are your memories of that? Like, can you give specifics?
I remember his smell. I remember when he passed, I was in a store.
How old were you?
I was 8. And when he passed, all of the senses started, to awaken. And so I would go into a store, and he used to wear a cologne with vetiver. And I wasn't aware of the scent. But I remember walking into a department store and stopping and just crying. And I asked my mother, I'm like, what is that smell? It reminds me of my father. And she started crying in the moment because she's like, I cannot believe that you can remember that. This was your father's cologne. So I think I started my journey with the synchronicities of remembering his legacy or his spirit came through food, through smell, and that was also an initiation of how to become more intuitive with all of the gifts that we receive.
Wow, so it's almost like his leaving, in a way, brought you to what you're doing?
The grief and the sadness that I experienced in my childhood with the loss of my sister and my father and a lot of loved ones allowed me to connect to the spiritual world. Because that's what I do, I work very closely with death. And so I think that my connection, well, my initiation, I would say, with the spirit world came at a very young age. I could hear things when I was younger. I could hear voices. But because
voices of people that
were passed, yes. And I was very much connected to wanting to salvage or to give people the proper way of dying. And when I was a kid, I would find animals, dead birds or cats that were run over. And I felt innately my duty that I needed to give them a proper burial. I had this willow tree in my garden, and it's a tree that teaches you how to bend, how to be forgiving. It allowed me to cry when I needed to cry. Mm-hmm. And it allowed me to laugh and to be joyous and to play. And I'm very connected to nature. I
know when you walked in today, as I'm like on my computer having a neurotic meltdown about some Instagram caption, making sure we're saying the right thing. You come in and you're like, we're sitting on the porch outside and you're like, oh my God, you're so lucky to be surrounded by all these trees. And I'm like, oh my God, Lily, you haven't noticed these trees in months.
My religion is nature. My temple is nature. Mm-hmm. I mean, what I give to people, or the way that I connect to my work is through the elements. Mm-hmm. So I need to understand and to listen to the wind, to be connected to the rhythm of the water, to understand the movement. So even though we live in these cities and when it's hard to sort of recognize that our teachers around us all the time, when I walked in and I saw your garden and I saw these ancient elders that surrounded you, it's a blessing.
What do you think your style says about you?
Well, my style has been a huge, I don't even know what word. I mean, since I was a kid, like, that was my creative voice. in my older age, I'm becoming much more of a purist, I think. You know, just wearing, I mean, I wear a lot of color because I think color, the vibrancy is very important, especially in a city where everyone wears black. What black does, it makes people feel like I'm not being seen, or I don't want to be the center of attention, or there's a sort of like very, and for certain people at certain times, that's the energy that they need. And so the vibrancy of color, you're bringing in the frequency of life force. You know, why when you go to these countries like in Africa, or you go to India, or you go to Latin America, and you have all these women that are wearing these beautiful tejidos, you know, like these colors and this vibrancy, and they look like flowers. Mm-hmm. And all these photographers and all these artists, they want to paint them and photograph them because they're such a positive energy.
Have you always had these amazing eyebrows?
Yes, I have.
And let them be natural.
Yes, because my eyebrows are a very big representation of my father. Mm-hmm. He had the same eyebrows and the same form of eyes as me. So when he passed on, it was a way that people used to recognize him inside of me. Mm-hmm. And I felt very honored and privileged that I had them. Mm-hmm. And so when I would go to school, or when I would go to a department store, and people would make comments of like, oh honey, you know, you would be so beautiful if you just plucked your eyebrows, or, you know, maybe we could clean them up. I was very adamant. I would be like, I'm fine the way that I am. Mm. I like my eyebrows, and this is the way that they're going to stay.
So when did you move to New York City?
I moved here when I was 17 because my father, well, actually my stepfather, but I call him my father because he raised me. He was posted here. He was an ambassador, and he was posted at the United Nations. And so that's why I lived in Europe as well. I was born in Mexico City, and when my father passed, I moved to Geneva when I was 8. And then to Paris, and then
here,
and then to New York. Yes.
What do you think has been your biggest personal struggle, or your biggest dark night of the soul, or whatever you want to call it?
When I was in my 20s, I was very, there's a word in Spanish that we say apagada, that it's sort of like the light is dimmed. Mm-hmm. You know, because I became cynical, and I lost faith in God. I had lost everyone that I loved, and I just was very angry.
What had happened? You had lost more people in your life?
Yes. You know, my grandparents had passed away. My cousin was also in a tragic car accident. So there was just a lot of pain.
A lot of death. Yeah.
And so the way that I processed it was, you know, just I went out a lot, and I have to say, I never got into drugs. Mm-hmm. And I was also very respectful with my body. Like I wasn't someone that, I understood that I didn't want to sleep around to feel like that I could fill that void. You know, I always, that's something that was very instilled in me as a child, that my body was sacred, and this was a temple. Mm-hmm. And that I didn't want to just allow anyone to come in, because that was where my power was. So my phase of being destructive was not about, you know, numbing or taking any type of substances to feel better, but I turned off. I just didn't want to deal with anything that made me have to evolve. And for me, my spiritual awakening was, I think it was between my Saturn return when I turned 26. I just remember being in the shower and saying, what is my life about? This is so meaningless. Like, I cannot just go on not thinking about what my next move is, like what my life is going to be about. I finished college. I went to NYU because of my background. I was a painter. Mm. And then I worked for Sotheby's.
So you were in the art world a little bit.
I was in the art world. Mm-hmm. And I was working at Sotheby's at the Latin American department, and just hating it. Mm-hmm. because I thought, oh my God, like I'm surrounded by these masterpieces, but it's like a bank.
About money.
You know, everything is about, it's a commodity. Everything is about selling, and yes, we do live in this type of world where money is important, but I think money for me is an exchange of energy. We need to make money. We need to sustain that relationship in a healthy way, because we do live in a world where we need to support each other, and that's one of the facets. But being in an environment that is toxic to your inner core, you know, so making money in a place where you don't identify with the people can be very challenging. Even if we don't want to look at it in our 20s or 30s or 40s, we always will come to a point where we're going to be confronted with, what is my purpose in this lifetime? Because that's the daunting energy or question. That's the unveiling of the soul. And usually it doesn't really come with money. You know, like the self-exploration is about unveiling all of the things that hold us back from wanting to explore our full potential. You know, I look back at every facet of my life, and I don't regret anything.
Yeah.
But it was necessary for me to explore that facet, because in order for me to want to go in the direction that I'm in now, I had to really it was a leap of faith, and it was also a kind of initiation of standing up for myself and saying, okay, this life is not my life.
The life that you were leading in your 20s.
Yes. I was unhappy. I was very unhappy because nothing felt sacred. You know, it's like my childhood where everything was so sacred and everything made, you know, there was just beauty everywhere. And even my art, you know, like I had stopped painting, like there was nothing. It was just, everything was very superficial. And that was making me very unhappy.
So what happened?
And so what happened was that I booked my ticket to India. I was sitting in the car coming from the airport in Delhi. You know, it's very chaotic and the smells are very strong, and I just remember being stuck in traffic, and I opened the window and I was observing this neighborhood, it was a ghetto, you know, and there was all the cows and the smells of the secretion and the defecation of all types of body parts. And I thought, okay, this is very intense. And then here comes, in this pile of trash, the most elegant, most beautiful woman in her sari, and this elegant, you know, just poise and grace. And I said, my God, if this woman can raise above everything and maintain her integrity and just have this grace and poise about her, like, this is what life is about. And I was confronted with that, you know, the first moment that I landed. You know, there's countries like that just have this power over humanity. The way that it can be very dark there as well and very painful, but there's just so much light and so much beauty. You know, I observed, I was just in awe with their way of life. And I just wanted that for myself.
So how did that transform you when you came back from India?
I mean, I think we need to have a period where we're unsettled, where we just completely have to shed everything.
Be uncomfortable.
And be uncomfortable. And that's what happened, you know. I had 5 years of being extremely uncomfortable.
In what ways? And
working through it, you know, just this overwhelming sense of sadness that everyone in this Western society, you know, automatically labels as depression. It's like, you need to go see a therapist. You just need to get medication. You just need to, like, get your feet back on track. Like, and I thought, no, the sadness is not depression. It's a different type of sadness. It's something that is where I had never felt my soul speak to me that way, you know. And I started calling in the people that I wanted to work with. I wanted my teachers. I really wanted to work with plants, and I wanted to understand the healing modalities of nature. I wanted to be more in tribal communities, and I just was looking for everything that was not accessible in New York.
So when you like came back and were wanting all of this in your life and exploring all of this, how did you juggle that with still living in New York City? Or did you leave? Or
no, I stayed. And so New York in many ways became my temple, you know. It's where I found my teachers, where I was able to renew myself, where I was able to sort of find my voice. And I was very lucky that I also had my teachers in Mexico. And I had this bridge between coming back to the Western world and going into these beautiful communities in Mexico, in Oaxaca, and implementing all of that knowledge and grace and in my work in New York. And it opened many doors.
I am super excited to try Boy Brief's products from Tomboy X. Tomboy X promises underwear that is made to fit you and how you see yourself. Tomboy X offers bikinis, briefs, boxer briefs, trunks, and boy shorts, as well as soft bras and racer back bras. Everything comes in everyday basic colors and fun seasonal prints. Wherever you fall on the size or gender spectrum, Tomboy X offers amazing underwear that anybody can feel comfortable in. Go to tomboyx.com/style, STYLE, and check out their special bundles and pack pricing. And What's Underneath listeners get an extra 15% off with code STYLE. Again, code STYLE for an extra 15% off. Go to tomboyx.com/style. Did you feel that there was a change within you at that time? Because 26 can be a, sort of very, or 20s can be a very self-conscious time about your body and your relative attractiveness and attraction to others and being lovable or not lovable. How did that affect you? How were you then, the pre-change, and then how did that change?
Well, I mean, my body changed completely because I went from smoking cigarettes and, not eating very much and drinking and then the moment that I decided that I was going to cut out the cigarettes and the alcohol and the caffeine, the body does change. And you do end up putting more weight on. And so that transition, I remember when people used to see me from the past, automatically the first question was like, are you pregnant?
They would ask you that?
They would ask me that.
And how did that feel?
Well, at first, it feels a little uncomfortable because they're asking because, yes, your body is not the same. And so I would just, I would listen to that and I would just say, no, I'm not pregnant. I'm just going through a different phase in my life. And
I'm not pregnant. I'm happy.
No, but also the detoxification of the lungs and the nervous system and everything, it starts changing. I mean, I had a ballet background, so I always had this very beautiful fit body that was very petite, and I grew up with a beautiful mother I love dearly, but she really cared about the appearances of the world that we sort of lived in. You have to want to break down all of those kind of boundaries that were imposed socially from your family, from any type of environment, if you really want to find your voice. I have loved being 40. It is the most beautiful time of my life. I mean, the type of security and awareness and just, I'm really enjoying this time of my life. Mm-hmm. I think being a woman and being in your 20s and 30s, there's so much that is going on hormonally and trying to figure out who you are. Mm-hmm. And then you get to a point as you get older where it doesn't really matter who you are becoming to anyone but yourself.
50s, or I would tell you, were great. I started StyleLikeU at 50.
See? No,
I mean, what I found out what I was doing here, what I was supposed to be doing.
Well, you also had kids during your first Saturn return, kind of. So that was
Right.
also what
I
you were
found out
supposed
the
to be
second
doing.
thing I was supposed to be. The second thing. Sorry, the second thing I was supposed to be doing.
Right.
Where is the ceremony? Where is the talk among women of when you are done being able to have children? Like that, whether you have them or not, I don't know what, like, but you go through a change. I don't even know if it matters whether you've had them or not. It's just that you go through to suddenly be in a place where you can't.
Well,
is huge and something that I'm definitely having a lot of sadness about. And
I think,
no one talks about that.
Well, I think it's a greater question of how, in this Western society, how we view aging and women that age, and how, you know, it's a challenging time because you see all these women that are going against the grain with the process because no one is supporting the process of aging gracefully.
You mean resisting the process, trying to stop the process?
Well, it's not that they're trying to stop it, but there's, you know, you have to remain fit, you have to look younger, you have,
Yes.
you know, all these different Botox and fillers.
Fearing aging. Like,
Fear-
I think people are in terror of it. Actually.
Yes. And I don't know, maybe because I grew up with a grandmother that aged so gracefully and beautifully. And
That's important.
She didn't dye her hair. She didn't have any type of plastic surgery. You know, she was just beautiful with all her wrinkles and I don't know. I grew up with, that was my model. And so we spoke, you know, a lot about the aging process and not fearing it. And also, I was around my grandfather that loved her so much and was just in awe of her grace and beauty and didn't ever want her to change. So for me, it's something very natural.
Mm-hmm.
I work with a lot of women and also men that fear, you know, aging and what that entitles, because it is daunting. You know, what does it mean not to have the same elasticity in the skin, or, you know, not to be able to reproduce, or not to be able to have a sense of worth of, you know.
Do you have children?
No, not in this lifetime.
Has that been something that has been a struggle, or did
no,
you always not want to?
It was a conscious choice.
Can you tell us more about
Well,
that?
the thing is that in my community, well, in Mexico or in Latin America, when you are a curandera, when you're a healer, it's one of the choices you have to make, because I'm strong enough and I'm protected enough that at least in this lifetime, I haven't had any health issues with my work.
Mm-hmm.
But whatever I pick up energetically could be passed on to anyone that lives with me.
Mm.
And so most medicine women or men that live in tribal communities, they usually don't have children because their children
Are the people
in the tribe. When I work with clients, like I am in the womb. Like I am what is transmitted out of my hands, and my essence is the Divine Mother.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't feel like I'm not a mother in this lifetime. I'm just not a traditional mother. I'm mother to many. I work with children, I work with the elderly, I work with the younger generation, and every relationship that I have with my clients, with the people that come into my life, it comes with that mother energy and essence.
Totally. But so the reasoning, like in tribal culture, is that like, is it both that you kind of energetically are savoring that motherly energy for the people that you're working with as a healer, or is it that because you're dealing with a lot of people's like different kinds of energy, negative, good, whatever, like that you could transmit that to a child? Is it?
Well, just to give you an example,
Yeah.
you know, sometimes I do perform exorcisms.
Whoa.
And so when that happens, you know, I pick up a lot of things. And so I know how to transform that and how to clean myself and how to regenerate. But if I bring that energy to my home, and if there's a young energy, if there's a baby energy, then they don't know how to protect themselves. So that spirit or whatever I release, that entity can go into that very pure energy. It happens sometimes. I used to have, I no longer have cats, but I had 3 beautiful, beautiful cats that were my children. And I had a session where I did have to perform an exorcism. And one of my cats got very, very sick that day when I performed the exorcism, because that spirit had entered her energy field. And she was just laying on the floor. She couldn't get up. She couldn't walk. Her legs had just ceased to stop, you know, to move. When I finally did the work to cleanse her and to cleanse my energy, which took like 48 hours, then she was back walking. And
So what do you do? Like, how do you
perform an exorcism?
Well, no, I mean, how do you... I mean,
like,
that...
what does that mean exactly? Like,
well,
can you
that
just
too.
explain
Okay,
that?
sure. We can start with that.
how do I perform an exorcism? Well, basically, everyone comes and I do what I do. No, they come and we're gonna do the cleansing, and so if the entity or the spirit does not want to be released from the body, then it starts to show its presence. And so what happens is that I usually release it, but then what happens to the client is that they actually go into a state of, it's not a coma, but they go into this deep sleep, and the body starts to go into convulsions, and then they start foaming of the mouth. And then after the spirit is released from the body, then I'm able to instill the tranquility and the peace back into their auric field with the energy work.
Did that ever feel overwhelming to you? That seems like a very intense.
It is intense. The thing is that when I was being prepared to do this work, 2 of my teachers asked me, said, this will happen. And so you have to be willing. If you are going to walk on this path, it's not all going to be fun and flowers and beauty. There's also a lot of darkness. And you have to, if you want to do this, this is part of the work. And you can't do spiritual work and say, well, I don't want to deal with this.
So did you ever have like a panic attack while this was happening, or like how did you, like at the beginning of this work? Or?
Well, the first time it happened to me, I was not prepared in the sense of the word of, like, I had rented a space out in the city. And, when you rent a space, there's a certain time frame. And it was in a yoga studio, so I rented it out for 2 hours. So the client came, and I thought, okay, well, 2 hours is going to be a perfect amount of time. And it so happened that I had to perform the exorcism, and I had to work with the client for 6 hours. And thank God that no one had booked the room after me, because that was the biggest stress, was like trying to hold space in this moment and make sure that no one would come in to interrupt the work that was happening. And that's when I realized that I needed to work out of my house. And because it was not responsible at all to put the client in that place, to put myself in that place, and to put, and in my house, that's why my room is activated, and it's a contained space. And so whatever happens in that moment, I'm prepared, and I have my tools and everything. Ooh, but it's not like I have exorcisms every day.
Right. But like, how is someone like behaving in a way that makes you know that you need to do that?
Well, usually you can see it in the eyes. Like when the spirit entity is inside of them, they start acting out. Like when I pass the egg over the body, or when I'm passing the light over the body with the candle, then there's a tremor that starts to happen in either one of the limbs, either the legs or the arms. And that's when I start realizing that the entity is being awakened, or doesn't really want to leave the body.
And what is the entity in your, like, how would you explain that entity?
So, it can be spirits. Well, entities are spirits. So you have this world, we live in this sort of very linear, abstract, this world where everyone is like, we're in the physical plane. But then we have the spiritual plane. And so when a lot of people have died, for example, with September 11th, and there wasn't the proper work done to clear that space and to honor the dead and to release them so they can go into the right place, a lot of the spirits remain on this realm and they don't have a place to go. So what happens is that they start finding bodies to go in.
Has healing others healed you, or how has it helped you?
I always tell this to young people or people that want to get into this vocation. It's not a glamorous job. It's not something that it's not easy. But for me, it's my life purpose. It's something that I give of myself freely. And what I receive in return is immense.
So I wanted to go back still to the question around like you deciding consciously to not have your own children. Like, was there a period of any mourning of that, or it was really something you felt very certain of?
No, because my sisters, they have beautiful children. I love my nieces and nephews. And I would ask them, when I was in my 20s, I'm like, do I wake up and feel like I want children? Because at the beginning I thought something's wrong with me. Like, why am I not feeling this? And I felt guilty. And then obviously socially people would always tell me, you're selfish. Like, you don't want to have children. You don't want to give up your freedom and all this kind of stuff. And I just, I started realizing that, like, I that's one thing I do. In what I do in my life, I honor everything that I feel. If I want something, I go for it. And children, I never woke up thinking, oh my God, I'm not fulfilled because I don't have children. Or my life is empty because I'm not a mother. Or I'm not worthy of being a woman because I don't, it's like, I've never felt that. And I'm 43 and maybe I will have kids, I don't know. But to this day, in this part of my life, I'm very fulfilled. And if children come, then I'm very blessed. But if I don't have children, I don't feel like there's anything lacking in my life. But, it was challenging, like, when I was younger, not because of what I was feeling, it was what was imposed.
The pressure.
Yeah, the pressure, social pressure of not being a mother.
And who imposed? Was it just culturally, or was there any someone in your family that actually?
No, culturally. I mean, my mother, she always wished that I had a daughter because or a son, because she loves me and she just would love to have an offspring that comes from me. And, but no. I mean, it was never, it was a cultural thing. I think that people just were curious because they know how motherly I am. And so they couldn't understand how, like, I could have this energy of maternal energy and not want to birth my own. I mean, I also, my partner, he's okay with that as well.
And I was going to ask, if you had a partner?
Yes.
And yeah, go on.
No, and we're very much aligned with what we want in our life. That's the problem when you're in a relationship with someone that wants children and the other partner doesn't. And then they cave and they say, okay, well, you want this, so then I'll do this for you. But you have to, having a family is a huge responsibility. And having a child, it's not like, okay, a whim where I have it and then I don't take care of it. It's something that you have. It's a relationship that you have until you die. And I think that the world is very overpopulated. There's a lot of children that are in need of a family. And if in my lifetime, if I wanted to have children, I think I would adopt.
Did you ever have partners where this was a conflict?
Well, I only had 4 partners in my life.
That sounds like
I
plenty.
mean, I've been with my partner for 18 years.
Oh.
So, yeah, no, I mean...
So 25. Since you were 25.
Well, I mean, we've been best friends since I was 17. But yes,
So he was with you during your Saturn return?
Yes, he's been with me through everything.
Oh, wow. Cool.
But, you know, I'm very fortunate. He's an amazing man. He honors me in every sense of the word, and he's very respectful, and we have this very strong symbiosis of respect and unconditional love. And our nucleus is so strong, you know, like we complement each other on all different facets. I think that my father sent him to me, you know, for me in order to facilitate and do the work that I do. Like, he's a huge part. And like, I wouldn't be able to give of myself so freely and unconditionally without my partner.
The support. Yeah.
He's a huge driving force in my life. I think it's very important right now with this Me Too movement. You know, we're all about empowering ourselves, and I think it's a great time for women. But as we reach this pinnacle of strength, we also have to nurture the men in our society, and we have to help them integrate and re-educate them because they need it.
The next series that we're going to do
of the video series
are going to be straight men. The video series.
I mean, I see with my work and my clients and the men that I work with, you know, everyone needs to be listened to be understood, and to be nurtured. And we have a lot of men that have been brought up to operate in a certain way, and they don't know how to work any other way.
Definitely.
And so us women, we have the responsibility to teach them to be vulnerable, to teach them to be connected. If we allow the men to feel safe in their failure, and to help them rebuild their confidence, and to build a network where it's not just you and that's it. It's like you and me. And I'm witnessing you, and you're witnessing me, and we're having a dialogue, and we're understanding each other's vulnerability. Then we're getting to the root.
Yeah, and understanding also that they're acting violently and on all different levels of violence, and even emotionally violent. They don't, because they have not been seen. I
mean, most people have not been seen.
Right.
And that's when the aggressiveness and the fear and the violence steeps in.
Yeah, it goes totally. It's all about erasing. It's all about being erased.
You know, when you witness someone, when you give them your attention, when you give them your love, and you nurture them,
that's all they need.
And you nurture that relationship, then everything, it grows. I tell people, it's a very simple thing. You see a plant, even if it's outside, or a plant that you buy in your house. If you're attentive to that plant and you nurture it and you put it in an environment that has positivity, it will bloom. I mean, I've had a hibiscus in my life for 15 years that gives me every year in February the most beautiful yellow, vibrant flower. And I think to myself, this is unconditional love. Because my plants, I mean, people who come to my house, I have a small jungle in my house. My plants are my babies. You know, I bless them, I kiss them, I thank them. And it's the same relationship that we have to have with humans. The same relationship that we have to have with animals. We're all connected. And when we stop seeing each other as, I am the man, you're the animal, that is nature, and that we're all separate, when we start coming together and realizing we're all connected, then that's when everything starts to happen.
We have to go through discomfort to get there, which is exactly what we've been talking about.
Yes.
What is your biggest source of shame, or do you have a source of shame?
I think it's more, you know what it is? I think it's more society wanting to shame certain actions,
Right.
sexually especially. I remember, because growing up in Europe, you know, I was always on the beach topless, like, you know, very free with my body. And then when I came to this country, and I would continue to go to the beach and go topless, you know, that's when people were making me feel shameful of presenting myself a certain way, where I always was brought up thinking that the body was very natural and very beautiful and that it should be free. And then when I would get into certain situations where they would make me feel dirty about it, then that would infuriate me. Because I just think that the feminine form is such a beautiful form. And if anyone is going to impose any type of judgment on the body and make it feel impure or distasteful, then that for me is shameful.
What does self-acceptance mean to you?
Self-acceptance is just, I don't know, for me it's just being happy with what I've been given and just trying to ameliorate my life with my tools and accepting my face, accepting my body, my height, my genetic pool, and embracing all of that and not trying to alter anything or to mimic anyone else. I think that's my biggest strength. Even when I was a child, I never wanted to be anything but me.
Thank you.
You are so welcome.
Thank you so much. That was amazing.
Thank you, guys.
That was dreamy.
We hope you were inspired by this episode.
Until next week, that's it from me, Elisa.
And me, Lily.
If you agree that facades separate us and being radically honest brings us together, help spread the movement for radical self-acceptance by sharing this episode and subscribing to our podcast.
You can also watch our videos by subscribing to our YouTube channel and following us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook using the handle @StyleLikeU.
That's the letter U instead of the word you.
And check out our book, True Style is What's Underneath, The Self-Acceptance Revolution, on Amazon or at a local bookstore near you.
We can't skip ahead to a happy ending or live inside a photoshopped image or an Instagram filter. There's no finding oneself when glossing over the truth.